Well, thank you very much. And first of all, welcome to this 14th session of the Group on Earth Observations Plenary. The first item right off the bat is to introduce you to the chair of this meeting. That's Dr. Stephen Volz, Assistant Administrator for Satellite and Information Services, NESDIS, and that's in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and he is the GEO co-chair from the United States. He will not only be chairing this meeting, but he will be giving us a welcoming address from the United States. So, Steve, let me turn the podium over to you.
So thank you, Barbara, and good morning, everyone. Well, I should say more appropriately, good morning to the distinguished delegates from all over the world, ladies and gentlemen, members of the many participating organizations, and everyone in this room who's committed to using global Earth observations to support good decisions, which is what GEO is all about. As Barb mentioned, I'm Stephen Volz. I'm the Assistant Administrator of NOAA's Satellite and Information Service, the ones who fly the satellites and also provide the data for users around the world. And it really is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the beautiful city of Washington, D.C. for this plenary. The United States is really honored to be the host of this 14th plenary and of the entire GEO Week 2017. So, and just watching the last 2 days to see the highlights of all of the work of this community, of the broad community here, and how it's bringing the many successes of GEO to this forum, but also to each other as we share throughout this 2-day event. Before I get into the formal part of this, I just want to give a couple of logistics. So I note the wide room here. It's not, sometimes those are on the wings. It may not feel the same connection as the ones in the center. I think it's actually a fairly good metaphor for our community, is that we're wide but not deep. We have 1 or 2 experts in individual elements, but we have hundreds of experts from hundreds of areas. So it's really key that we do learn how to talk to each other across the different communities and the different disciplines that we have. So we'll do our best not to pivot continuously, but to look around and make sure we keep everybody included in the conversation. Also tonight we have a reception at the National Museum of Natural History. There have been some questions about who's invited. If you're a delegate and you've got the badge which says plenary and the teal color on here, you are a member and you are invited to the reception tonight at 7 p.m. in the Natural History Museum of the Smithsonian. And also some others were given special invitations to attend. So if you're one of those 2 groups, please come to the reception this evening. So it was more than 14 years ago that a group of nations got together here in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 2003 and committed and affirmed the need, and I'm quoting here, the need for timely, quality, long-term global information as a basis for sound decision-making. And they agreed at that time to establish an ad hoc group for Earth observations. So GEO was born at that time and at that meeting. These GEO plenaries have been recognized around the world as premier gatherings of these committed and dedicated experts and advocates who share a common cause. And that common cause is to apply Earth observations and the information they provide to decisions for societal well-being and for security, for scientific discovery and technology investment, and for economic and community development and healthy growth. And that's been the hallmark and the pedigree of what we do for the last 14 years. With each year, as our gatherings grow and as we continue to create new opportunities amongst the champions from all the sectors, from all the parts of the world to further this enterprise. Through our GEO collaborations, accomplished by people in this room largely, and the organizations and the communities that you represent, it's obviously much deeper than the few of you who are here with us today. We continuously improve those data and tools that enable those benefits to be realized by individual nations and communities around the world. Those of us here really don't need to be told the importance of Earth observations, but we do know that we can learn from each other by sharing our knowledge about where the observations have enabled success, and what has worked well and what hasn't worked well. Failed examples are just as useful as successful ones in terms of learning how to improve. where critical needs and opportunities exist for Earth observations to be brought to bear to solve problems, and what new approaches have been tried and proved effective in one region of the world which may then be leveraged and be made effective in another region as well. So all of these things allow us to provide that critical insight to help decision makers prepare, plan, respond, and recover, and to sustain the lives and the world that we live in. This year has been, I was going to say remarkable, but it seems every year is remarkable in terms of the climate and weather events or disasters that have occurred around the globe. In South Asia, flooding and landslides followed heavy monsoons. In Africa, landslides and drought of significant and very impactful event. In North America, we've had major hurricanes and earthquakes just in the past quarter or so. Each of these have challenged the resilience of local communities and actually sometimes entire regions to respond and to recover from in a timely way. Those are just the episodic extremes. Other extremes happen over many years. Sometimes they don't occur overnight, but take years or even decades to develop, such as sustained droughts or desertification, sea level rise, or other events such as habitat loss. Each of these challenges, these events, require a response and demand that we provide the best information we can to mitigate those. Some nations and some regions are well prepared and well equipped to deal with these severe events, and other nations and communities don't have that same capacity. And even some events tax even the most prepared nation. Just for example, the 3 major hurricanes that we saw in the United States taxed our ability to address and to mitigate and to deal with the issues as they came. And it was partly through our partnerships, significantly part, in getting observations in real time, which allowed us to respond more effectively than we would have been able to do on our own. We understand then that it is really every nation benefits from the collaborations we do here. So how does GEO come into play? GEO continues to be the convener that brings together the multiple communities, the institutions, the experts, and the practitioners that have worked in and through these events around the world, to both through GEO to broadcast those successes and to look for opportunities to apply the practices for worldwide use and benefit. We live in a different world than we did 14 years ago when GEO was first created. Maybe to the science fiction writers, they saw it coming, but some of us, we didn't. I'll just give one example of new capabilities that are really being realized in the near term. Recently, the hurricanes that we saw, Hurricane Harvey, when it impacted and landed in the southeast part of Texas. We have the new NOAA satellite GEO-XIV was in space providing weather forecasters with real-time operational activity and information. For example, when the Hurricane I landed, came off the ocean, off the Gulf and landed in Corpus Christi, Texas, there were a number of people who had not been able to evacuate in advance of it. We were able, with the tracking, the precision, and the timeliness, with 30-second updates and 5-minute latency, to provide minute-by-minute tracking of the Hurricane I and the eye wall location, and in contact with the emergency managers on the ground to be able to talk to the firemen and the rescuers who were sitting in buildings in Corpus Christi to tell them when they can get out of the building, get in their car, and make rescues. And then while the eye was transiting, and told them when the left-hand wall is coming, so get back into cover. And minute by minute, as the eye tracked across the city, we were able to do that and to inform the first responders, the emergency managers, to be able to rescue on the order of 200 people who otherwise would have just had to sit through the 150, 170-mile winds when the next wall came. That's just one example of how a capability which was not available a year ago is being realized and applied directly right now today. One satellite example from the United States, but there are similar examples and extraordinary possibilities from other observations, satellites, ground, sea, air, around the world, which are also have incredible potential for benefit. It's our job to figure out how to make that happen, and to make that happen in a time frame which is helpful for the people we have. Developments like this change the way that we deal with observations. They expand the realm of what is possible, what we can consider. And that's one of the parts of why this group has grown so much over the past 14 years. Both expansion by members joining, by participating organizations, but also in the breadth of the challenges and the problems we want to address and we're able to address because of our data sharing and our communications and our coordination. With each flagship that GEO promotes and supports, with each initiative and community activity driven by the energy of the people who generate those based on local knowledge and local need often, these examples lead others to come in and join and to provide the same kind of emerging capabilities and expands the impact of GEO and our community around the world. Even countries that don't own sophisticated observing systems and monitoring networks can still leverage these data and these information developed by members who do have the capacity, and that's really the most important bridging that we do here within GEO. Later in the plenary, for example, in tomorrow's panel discussion, we will hear from GEO member states, developed and developing countries, who are making Earth observations work by developing national Earth observation plans, both from countries that have satellites in space and extensive observation systems, and those that don't, but know they need to be able to use the data. So you need a plan for how to receive data as much as you need a plan for how to generate and to produce data. So it's an example then of showing that it takes all sides can benefit from this. So, oops, missed my last page there. Sorry. So today in the panel sessions, we will hear from individuals who will deal with decision-making or who work closely with and provide support to decision makers. In each of the panel sessions we have, hearing from these, we will not just hear how they view Earth observation data, but also how they receive information and whether or not there is more that we can do to help them. So it's an integrated, what do they need? What are their capabilities based and limitations based on how much we can get them information? And I hope that our group here can listen and open up their eyes with opportunities that they may not have seen on their own in their own groups. So throughout today's plenary sessions and tomorrow, our panelists will be discussing these, and I ask that everyone in the room listen and engage. Share your experiences and insights, make interventions where they can be helpful and appropriate, challenge the speakers who may be comfortable in their successes to places where they may be they need to learn and to stretch a little more. Present the panelists with those challenges so that they can help us all learn. Considering what you've learned just from the last 2 days' events, I'm sure there are lots of opportunities that were identified and challenges that we haven't yet met. So in closing, I would say there's an old saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. So 14 years ago, we planted the GEO tree. It has grown very well. It was a small group and much smaller than this audience. And you can see how much it has grown. But we can't just admire that tree. We have to expand it and grow with it. So today and each day going forward, we need to plant new trees and new examples of how GEO can expand and really provide services and deliveries to the communities that we support. And with that challenge, I think I'd like to say let's begin today's activities in the next 2 days and going forward for GEO. So thank you. So now, sitting down, is this working? Yes. I'd like to introduce the co-chairs of the Executive Committee of the GEO. So starting first with our co-chair from South Africa, Dr. Phil Majwara, who is the Director General, Department of Science and Technology, Republic of South Africa. Phil?
Thanks very much, Steve, the co-chair for the Americas Caucus Group. Also like to start by expressing our sincere thanks to the U.S. And the sponsors. We met them last night for hosting this plenary and the GEO Week. I do look forward to the panel discussions that we're going to have today and tomorrow as part of demonstrating how we are taking our strategy for this next decade forward. Just to remind you, we are engaging, advocating, and delivering in these next 10 years. I also look forward to the decisions that ExCom will give the Executive Committee to continue with the engagement strategy that we've been discussing, which we think, again, is key in advancing GEO. The engagement with the commercial sector, we'll hear the panel discussions today, and then, of course, we hope that we will also get the sign-off on the new GEO work plan. I'm grateful to the Secretariat under the leadership of Barbara for the arrangements and also remaining calm under a demanding Executive Committee that constantly asks for more. I'm grateful to the fellow co-chairs for their great leadership and guidance, and in particular, Robert Jan-Smith, who was the lead co-chair for the past year, has guided us as the Executive Committee and the entire GEO, and then, of course, all the Executive Committee members who were supporting us in GEO. And lastly, I wish to invite you to the AfriGEOs Symposium 2018, which will be held in Libreville in Gabon on the 25th and the 27th of April. And again, thanks to the government of Gabon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Jan Smits, Director General of the Research and Innovation in the European Commission. Robert?
Thank you very much, Stephen, and good morning, everyone. Dear Stephen Vols, Assistant Administrator for Satellite and Information Services at NOAA. Dear Phil Mojara, Director General, Department of Science and Technology in South Africa. Dear Vice Minister Wei Wang from China. Dear Barbara Ryan, Director of the GEO office. Let me first of all welcome all of you here to Washington to the 14th GEO plenary session. I thank once again our hosts for their hospitality and the Secretariat under the leadership of Barbara Ryan for the first-class preparation. Washington, D.C. and GEO have a special relationship because, as Stephen already reminded us, the Earth Observation Summit, which led to the establishment of GEO, took place here in Washington in July 2003. And the European Commission has been there from day one, and will continue to do so. And as a sign of our commitment to GEO, we will increase our financial contribution to GEO, and we have launched yesterday GEO-XIV, an organization system inside the European Union, inside Europe, to boost the take-up of data coming out of Earth observation activities. As you probably know, GEO-XIV, and many of you were there at the launch event, will have at its heart Copernicus, the Copernicus emergency services which have been so actively involved when the hurricanes Harvey and Irma have struck the Caribbean and the United States, providing images and maps of the damages of the region affected. We're looking forward to discussion here with you because we see that we are facing a number of challenges which we need to discuss. First of all, how can we combine in the most optimal way the different types of Earth observation data? Secondly, how can we ensure take-up by society and by the commercial sector of all the data we are generating? And I'm very grateful that so many representatives of the commercial sector are here today with us to allow for an open exchange of views. And last but not least, I see as a challenge, how can we improve the communication of what we are doing to society? Because the citizen and society at large should know what we are doing and how our planet is benefiting from the data we are sharing, making interoperable and deploying. Thank you very much for your attention. It's great to be here in Washington.
Thank you, Robert Jan. And now I'd like to introduce Vice Minister Wei Wang from the Ministry of Science and Technology in China, who will be helped by an interpreter as well. Thank you.
好，尊敬的各位GEO的联合主席芭芭拉女士、各成员国和参加会议的代表女士们、先生们，大家上午好。首先，请允许我作为亚洲代表区域的联合主席以及中方的团长，真诚地感谢美国政府举办GEO第14届的年会。在此，我还要特别感谢任期主席史密斯先生和GEO办事处的芭芭拉女士在过去1年里头的辛勤的劳动和做出的突出的贡献。
Distinguished GEO co-chairs and Ms. Barbara Ryan, representatives of GEO member countries and participating organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As the co-chair representing ASEAN Oceania member countries and head of the Chinese delegation, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the U.S. government for hosting the 14th GEO plenary. And I would like to thank the rotating chair, Mr. Smith, and the GEO Secretary Director, Ms. Ryan, for their outstanding work and contributions over the past year.
今天来自中国国内12个部门，有50多名代表组成了中国的代表团，与在座的各位共同商议GEO未来的发展的重要议题。2017年也是GEO发展的重要一年，在区域内21个成员国相关组织的共同努力下，亚太地区的地球观测迅速发展，全球地球观测的基础设施的能力建设也显著提升。亚太地区 综合地球观测系统国际合作计划等一批计划都取得了很好的进展。通过深化与联合国地理信息系统专家委员会、联合国亚太经社会等组织，进一步提升了我们GEO在亚太地区的影响力。
Today, a Chinese delegation with nearly 50 representatives from 12 ministries attends this plenary for the better future of GEO. 2017 is an important year for GEO development. With the joint efforts of 21 member countries and the related participating organizations, the Asian-Oceania region has witnessed a rapid development in Earth observation. GEO's infrastructure construction and application capability. Asian-Oceania region activities, such as AO-GEO's initiative, have made phased progress, and the influence of GEO in Asian-Oceania region is greatly increased by regional engagement with international organizations, such as United Nations Initiative of Global Geospatial Information Management and United Nations Economic and Social Commission for ASEAN and the Pacific.
同时，我也想借此机会向各位代表简要地介绍中国GEO的工作进展。为推动实施GEO新的10年计划，中国制定了中国面向全球综合地球观测系统10年执行计划。该计划也将为世界各国社会经济环境可持续发展合作搭建平台。中国还发射了碳卫星、风云4号等一系列地球观测卫星，加强了地球观测数据共享与服务，开展了全球生态环境遥感监测分析，并在全球重大自然灾害应急响应中发挥了重要作用，与“一带一路”沿线国家等开展了多边、双边的科技合作，并为发展中国家提供我们力所能及的帮助。
In the meanwhile, I want to take this opportunity to brief you on China GEO's progress. To follow up on the new strategic plan for implementing GEOs, China has made its own national plan. This plan is also expected to set up a platform for the worldwide cooperation on sustainable development in society, economy, and the environment. China has launched the Tensat and Fengyun No. 4 series satellites and facilitated data sharing and service. We have performed global ecosystem and environment monitoring and analysis, and played an important role in rapid response to worldwide major natural disaster relief. China has bilateral and multilateral cooperation with countries in the Belt and Road region and supports the capacity building of developing countries.
中国地球观测相关的成果和最新的进展已于昨日举行的中国日进行了发布。国家综合地球观测共享平台的英文网站也开通。这次会议期间，我们还设立了中国展区进行专题的展示，欢迎各位前往展区参观交流。最后，祝愿此次大会能够取得圆满成功。谢谢大家。
These deliverables were released to the public yesterday in the China Day event, and the China GEO's DSNet is open to the world. The achievements and the latest progress will be displayed in the China exhibition area during the plenary. I welcome you to stop over and have a look. Finally, I wish the plenary a full success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Minister. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Barbara Ryan, Directorate's GEO Secretariat. Barbara.
Great, thank you very much. What we'll do is, in addition to these welcoming remarks, and thank you very much for joining us. I think the registration numbers are on the order of 700 people between the side events and the plenary. And so this may be one of the largest plenaries not associated with the ministerial summit, but we'll have the numbers at the end of the week. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that so far there have been 1,600 tweets using hashtag GEO-XIV, reaching more than 3 million people. So thanks to all the communication teams in member countries and participating organizations, that's been coordinated under the direction of Madeline West, our communications officer. So nice work to everyone in the room. We've got a couple slides on just new members and new participating organizations, and then some additional logistics to what Steve provided earlier. And so for new members, the 104th member of the Group on Earth Observations is the Royal Government of Cambodia, effective 23 January 2017. So welcome, Cambodia. And the 105th member is the Sultanate of Oman, effective 24 April 2017. We had a nice suite of participating organizations come in this last year, and if you remember from your decisions a year ago in St. Petersburg, Russian Federation, you as a plenary delegated approval authority to the executive committee for reviewing applications, and then the executive committee would report out to you annually of who has come in. So Agromet, the regional center, the Central African Forest Commission, that's COMAFACT, Conservation International, the Cooperative Research Center for Spatial Information, CRCSI, the Community Surface Dynamics Modeling System, CSDMS, EarthMind, Eurogeographics, GODAN, the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition, ISILSTEL, the Institut Supérieur d'études spéciales et télécommunications, the Paul G. Allen Philanthropies, formerly known as the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation, the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, that's UNECLAC, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and lastly, the World Resources Institute, WRI. So let's join with a round of applause for all the new POs. For logistics, I think most importantly, if you haven't done it already, download the app for GEO Week 2017. It's a way to connect with other attendees, review the schedule, rate and review the sessions and events, and then you can get access to all the speakers, sponsors, and the exhibitor profiles. And if you haven't been to the exhibit area, please do. It's a remarkable show of expertise around the world. So you can also access the venue map, and then while you can go to our website or download it from those app stores. The other thing with the introduction of the panels and making it more interactive than we did a year or so ago, we really do want you to join the conversation. And the best way to do that virtually, I suppose, is to go to slido.com or download the Slido app, and then pay attention to where the dot is on either the website or the app, because it's in a little different place. And you can also find the links on the GEO 2017 website. There's a code for that. Select the session and then post your questions there, and also you can vote on your favorites. So when we go into the panel sessions later today and tomorrow, this is a way that you can post your question, everyone can see it, and then hopefully the moderators will bring in as many as they can. And then also, for those of you that have not submitted your statements, please do so. You can submit them to Rick Bayens, our information technology person. Email is shown there, hbayens@geosec.org. For all of you who have already posted your statements, please visit the Interactive Statement Hub, and it's in the atrium at the hall entrance. And of course, they'll all be posted on the web after this meeting. So, lastly, if you need any other help, please look for someone with an orange lanyard. That's the Secretariat staff here, and if we don't know the answer, we will find that answer out for you. And I guess I would just like to, again, thank the U.S. host on this and your entire team, because we've had a great time working with you and the team putting this together. So enjoy today and the rest of the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thank you.
Excellent. So with that, we'll move right into the agenda for the conference today. And the first part of the agenda is to approve the agenda. So I submit to the GEO community approval of the agenda, and if there are any comments or objections, please raise them. Seeing none, expecting none, then it is approved, and we will move forward then. Thank you. So the first then, with the next statement is the draft report of the GEO-XIV of the St. Petersburg GEO Plenary. So that has been submitted in advance. Barb, did you have any comments you want to make to that as we for this? So the floor is open to comments or observations related to the plenary report from GEO-XIII. Any comments?
This is Jennifer Collette on behalf of David Grimes. Just to mention, we made some minor submissions secretarially to the Secretariat regarding our comments on stakeholder engagement. Thank you.
And we've incorporated those. Yep, we've got those. Thanks. So they'll be incorporated in and before we post it finally.
So I realize with the layout of the room here, it is going to be difficult to see. So I'm going to need help from the crew here. If there's comments or observations from the wings, especially behind the podium here, that we will need some help in community. Are there others?
Steve, in that regard, I think we are trying to get the podium moved so we can see that side. And apparently a little bit later in the day, the entire front area may be video, so those people can see it on the front slide. So not hearing anyone jump up and down, I'll assume then that aside from the one comments that were made, the plenary report from GEO-XIII has been approved and accepted. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to a next section, which is Earth Observations. It's from a Changing World, which will be a presentation by the Secretariat Director. I'd like to give a little intro to that one, as we'll see in a moment. We'll be seeing a short video introduction prior to this. So the GEO Secretariat has worked with a video production company over the past year, supported by a number of industry sponsors, to develop a 10-part documentary of a series about the value of Earth observations. You can access all parts, all elements of the production on the GEO website. And what we're going to see up front here is the intro portion of that. It is a short summary of the very powerful overall series, and a good teaser, if you will, for looking into the next ones. We'd like to thank, this was a major investment and an important part of the GEO Secretariat's outreach and communications activities, and would not have been possible without the generous contributions, financial and technical, of many of our sponsors. So I want to make that clear. This is, we rely on all of our participants to be successful here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Barb to key up the video.
I am an eternal optimist. I'm not particularly optimistic about the state of the Earth.
Right now, our world is facing many challenges: overpopulation, climate change, scarce resources like water and food ultimately is changing the face of the planet. It's simply not sustainable the way things are going.
We're working across a number of different areas, from agriculture to climate to water, to help provide the information that will help improve the day-to-day activities.
What fascinates me about maps is that you could be virtually in any place on this earth and understand the reality of that place.
We hope that these maps will be able to help us understand where these ecosystems provide the greatest service: food, transportation corridors, recreation, all of the things we as humans need from the planet.
We are monitoring the ocean anywhere in the world, at the surface and also below the water. This is our common resource.
We're looking for fishing behavior where it shouldn't be, and what we're able to do is pick that information up by satellite and get a global picture of all these movements of vessels.
Today, 8,000 animals are followed every month. And over the past 30 years, more than 100,000 animals have been followed.
Humpback whales, for example, that are being tagged to see where they feed and where they breed.
Hurricane Matthew was a very large natural disaster. Humanitarian actors did not necessarily have access to where to go to deliver aid.
We are able to provide imagery from our archives of how was the situation before the hurricane, during the hurricane, and after, to help the rescue teams to know where do we have big destructions.
GEO is organizing the world's Earth science and Earth observation community.
Increasing the awareness of countries to understand that the Earth observation data actually is openly accessible and freely available.
We provide them a vision and capability that a human being cannot realize by himself.
It's allowing us to, in a collaborative environment, leverage this kind of information for real action.
The role of international cooperation is essential. Any single nation cannot do the observation of the ocean that we need for to run our system. So this international cooperation, as developed and promoted through GEO, is essential in making sure that we can pool resources and share the data.
We could get people and governments to see that actions in one part of the earth are in fact having an impact on the entire earth. And being an eternal optimist, I would like to think that people will be responsible.
Yeah, so again, you saw the sponsors on that previous slide, and then the Blue-Orange video team spent a number of days with us in Geneva, Switzerland. They're out of the UK and did just a really nice job, actually on the whole 10-part series, so we'd encourage you to visit that. So again, Barbara Ryan, Director of the Group on Earth Observation Secretariat, and here to talk about Insight for a Changing World, the entire theme of the next couple days. Steve talked about 14 years. That's absolutely right. It was an ad hoc GEO, and there were a couple years of preparation before that. So I probably should have said 14 years. It would have given me 2 more minutes. So rather than 12 years and 12 minutes, I'll take the 14 years in 14 minutes. So let's just take a look back at 2005 to 2015, and I think we could start out with a question: why GEO? You've heard some of that in Steve's remarks, but also why GEO and you, and why you? Why are you personally investing your time to come here to join GEO? And let's tease that out, because at the end of the day, it is this personal commitment that in many ways holds our institutions more accountable. So why GEO and why you? And for us, it really is going back to just first principles. It's that shared vision to realize a future where decisions and actions for the benefit of humankind are informed by coordinated, comprehensive, and sustained Earth observation information and services. Now, let's look at those first 10 years. We spent a lot of time on this part of the vision statement. All the adjectives in front of observation, information, and services: coordinated, comprehensive, and sustained. Coordinated globally, regionally, nationally, and locally. Comprehensive across domains, across networks, across platforms, and sustained over time. So if you think about the work that you have been doing, and your people that are not here in this room, but are in each of your institutions over the last 10 years, a lot has been on this part of that vision statement. As we transitioned and have transitioned with the strategic plan that was adopted in Mexico City a couple years ago, 2016 to 2025, our community got a clear signal that, that we needed to focus on a different part of that vision statement. So Where have we been in this transition era? 7 continents, 8 societal benefit areas, 12 years, we could say 14 years, 73 different work program activities, 105 members. This says 115 participating organizations, but executive committee action yesterday brought that to 118 participating organizations. More than 5,000 data providers. While we've got some registered catalogs that are on the order of about 150, those catalogs are contributed by 5,000 different agencies and organizations around the world that then contribute 400 million Earth observation resources that are discoverable and accessible through our platform, our GEOS Common Infrastructure. So that's GEO in numbers. Last decade, transition to this decade. Let's do a little bit of a deeper dive down to those 105 member countries. They're shown on this map, and you can see the regions that are shown below. We've still got a few challenges, a couple in South America, Africa, the Middle East. At 105 member countries, you know, we are not a UN organization, but you must be a UN member state to join GEO. That's still only about half the UN member states, which are 194 or 195. And so there are many small island developing nations in the Caribbean, in the Pacific Island nations. Some of those countries are the most susceptible to climate change and a changing Earth, and yet they are not yet in the family. That's where we are right now. The 115, which is now 118 participating organizations in these last couple of years have come into their own. These participating organizations coordinate immense resources around the world, capability around the world. By having them in the GEO family means we do not have to coordinate what they are doing. We can just focus on those interstices. So please take a look at this slide with the richness that's in these participating organizations. They now occupy half the seats on our program board. They have observer status at the XCOM, so they can influence the governing processes. So a real progress has been made in these last couple years with participating organizations. You know, we are about all Earth observations in geodetic measurements, groundwater measurements, on surface water measurements, soil moisture measurements on the Earth and around the Earth. It's not just space-based observations, it's also in situ observations. And if we look at that space-based side, it's largely national governments and the private sector that are providing those space-based observations globally. We need to focus on in situ observations. Again, many of your national governments are the repositories for these in situ observations about the Earth. And yet the new participating organizations, whether it's foundations or whether it's development banks, are also financing in situ observation work. So again, we need to bring them in. We need to do a better job of integrating both space-based and in situ observations. So let's look at that vision statement again, because I do think we got very clear guidance, not only from the Mexico City plenary, reiterated last year by you in St. Petersburg, certainly from the executive committee over the last several years. It's time to really focus on this part of the vision statement, and that is to, in fact, realize a future where decisions and actions are informed by all the work we did in the first decade. So it is really about moving from largely a data-centric approach to a user-centric approach. I'll cite this next graph that I got from Dan Irwin-Severe at a Himalayan GEOS launch. It's about closing the gap between users and providers. So we've got users on one side, we've got providers on the other side, and yet that's where those decisions are being made. So it's closing this gap. How do we do that? We do it with those flagships, whether it's the GEO-BON effort, whether it's GEO-GLAM, whether it's GFOI, or whether it's the global observation for mercury. These are some of the most robust initiatives that we have within the GEO work program that have required a policy mandate. So let me just select GEO-GLAM. The G20 agricultural ministers came together back in 2011 and said, we'd like you, GEO, working with AMIS, the Agricultural Marketing Information System in Rome. We don't put prices on those 4 major food crops, but we have data that can influence that pricing structure. With GEO-BON, it's the Convention on Biological Diversity that has referenced GEO. We hope with mercury, the Minamata Convention will start to mention mercury. And I understand from the site events this week, there was just a really successful Global Forest Observation Initiative site event where a number of different funding partners, the World Bank came to the table and said, you know what, this is where we want to invest our resources. So I think what's important here for each one of these flagships, and I would argue initiatives, some of these started 5 and 6 years ago. There is a gestation period for these to really emerge and make their way into public policy. But if you want to close the gap between users and providers, these are one mechanism to do that. Another mechanism to do that is to downscale what we're doing globally to the regional areas. So whether it's AfriGEOS, AmeriGEOS, AOGEOS, or what was launched yesterday, EuroGEOS, these are frameworks that are adopting the same goals and principles of GEO to a lower geographic scale, getting closer to where decisions are made. So 2 different mechanisms. Our flagships and initiatives at a programmatic level to close the gap, our regional initiatives at a geospatial level to get closer to users that need this information. And then lastly, again, you adopted this last year in St. Petersburg, 3 engagement priorities. So the Sustainable Development Goals, very, very strong partnership with the UN Statistics Commission, the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development, UN GGIM, of which we have 2 of the co-chairs in the room for that effort. Pengdi Lee and Tim Traynor are in the room. The Paris Agreement, and also the Sendai Agreement. So a lot of work has been done since last year, drilling into each of these engagement priorities to better connect providers with users. But we still have challenges. It is a changing landscape. It's a constantly changing landscape. And so one of the things that we sent around about 6 months ago is asking each of you as member countries to consider broadening the names, not just the people that you bring to this plenary, but broadening the names on your delegation in our database so that you at the national level can start reaching out to other agencies. So we've done a search on the database. This is the results of that search. We have 5 countries that we have 6 countries that have more than 5 agencies on their in our contact database. Those 6 countries are Georgia, Romania, Senegal, Seychelles, Sweden, and Zimbabwe. So thank you very much for taking our guidance to heart, because it's not just about international collaboration and regional collaboration, but in fact national collaboration. And until we get this entire system linked up, that's what we would need to see. Also, you will see on this slide that there are 5 agencies that have added statistical agencies to their delegation. And so we would argue, if you want to successfully use Earth observations to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, those statistical agencies should be represented on your GEO, in our GEO database, so that they're getting information from us that doesn't always have to be filtered through the GEO principal or the GEO alternate. Those countries are Cambodia, new member, thank you very much, Cambodia, Oman, new member, Senegal, Seychelles, and again, Sweden. So I think between Senegal, Seychelles, and Sweden, you may win the prize at this time, and I hope if we present this graph next year, we will see more dark blues on this, because it is about coordination at the national, regional, and international level. So 6 agencies with 5 or more agencies represented, 43 GEO members with 2 to 4 agencies represented, and still the bulk of our members, 53 members, have only 1 agency in the database. And that does not help if that one person moves on, we no longer have a contact, and it also doesn't help with internal coordination within the country. We'd love to see this graph change over time. So that's a plea and a challenge to each and every one of you in this room. Let's also just wrap this up by a graph on countries with open Earth observation data policies or open data portals, including Earth observations. Now, before you freak out, let me tell you how this graph was generated, and how, if you think you have an open data portal, or if you think you have open data policies, you can get the color for your country changed. Wenbo Chu in the audience, our on the Secretariat staff, we used the Open Data Barometer as an indicator. We searched national open data portals. We used the CIAS, our participating organization down here, their data policy portal for space-based data, and if you identified a data sharing person on your delegation, which we also asked you to do, then we have worked with that person to try and either get you up here or get you changed in the future. So again, it would be very good in the letter that we ask that you nominate someone from one of your agencies or organizations to serve as a data sharing contact point, so that you'll see a different color next year on this particular chart. So lastly, just to wrap up, broad open data policies. You know, in Mexico City, we released a report on this. It's good for the economy, of course. It's good for education and capacity building. It's good for environmental governance. I want to stress that if you, as a government agency or a public institution, are still selling data, you are only creating a barrier, one, for your other federal agencies to use that information, and you're certainly creating a barrier for use of information. So how are you going to close the gap from providers to users if you don't adopt broad open data policies? My personal experience, of course, was when I was in the United States Geological Survey. For 34 years, we sold Landsat data for $500 a scene when the government had the satellites, $4,000 or $5,000 a scene when the private sector operated the satellites in the mid-'80s. At the peak of data sales, 2001, we sold 53 scenes a day. Now, 53 scenes a day, $400 a scene, 365 days a year, we were bringing in $4.5 or $5 million. As I would say in the United States, that's not chump change. It's significant. How many public institutions are selling hydro data, meteorological service data, geologic data for $4.5 or $5 million a year? Probably not too many. We changed the data policy, took a long time. 5,700 scenes a day to this day are downloaded of Landsat data. So for education, for capacity building, but for your economy. The 2011 analysis was that data change, that policy change generated $1.7 billion of economic return to the United States, $400 million elsewhere for a global total of $2.1 billion, which far exceeds the $4.5 or $5 million that one agency was collecting. You are inhibiting economic growth in your governments if you do not adopt broad open data policies, and I am convinced with the announcement of the Copernicus broad open data, there will be similar, if not better numbers than this in a few years when those economic analyses are done. With the announcements that were done this week by China and Japan and other governments around the world for their space-based observations, these numbers will only grow. And again, this is just the satellite data. It's not the hydrologic data or the geologic data or your soil moisture data. This is only one asset, and so we've got to adopt broad open data policies. And I think this is the argument for our ministers for economic growth. So old data, it's unlocking those archives, it's sharing that data with any GeoPortal, certainly linked into ours. Existing data is absolutely, we need to get more open access to that. And clearly for new data, it's about collaboration, integration, and communication. And so open data really is just so essential for the future and for humankind. So thank you very much. Enjoy, again, enjoy the rest of the week. Very much appreciate all your personal energy to be in this room and your institutional energy as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb, for that very comprehensive assessment of the capability of the membership and of the contributions of the members here. So we're at a point now, we're getting to the first coffee break, but before we get to that, we will be having a presentation at the opening of the exhibition right outside the doors here in a few moments by some of our national presenters, but also some of our sponsors who has helped make the presentation area, the exhibit area, productive and useful. So I encourage you, as you step away, to listen to the introductions and to explanation a little bit of how we've established or set up the exhibits. One of the things, I'll put a slight plug in for the United States, that we tried something different this year with the Cafe USA, which is a different theme to try and draw people in to ask questions and not just to look at pictures of satellites and pictures of the Earth, but to ask questions about how those pictures turn into useful information. So please talk to our booth and all the booths about the experts who will be there talking about who know best what they're presenting and preparing. And one last point, I'll take the privilege here as the convener of this portion to express personal thanks to our co-chair from South Africa, who will be having his last role here as the co-chair after many years, Dr. Phil Majara, who has been sort of the face of GEO for many years now. And I want to thank you for your many years of service and the contribution of your country. So thank you. So with that, the opening session will reconvene in the exhibit area so we can hear the opening of the general exhibit. So thank you, everyone.